Do you get any inspiration from your children in terms of the business?
Yeah, I do. I do.
Are they learning
I
about
also
it?
asked my 12-year-old son advice. I'm thinking about hiring someone at the moment, and I'll explain the situation to him. A slightly more senior person, enable me to grow more. Shorter term, it might mean, I have to work a little bit harder, maybe earn less money from the business. What do you think? So I like to get that. I like to.
What does he say?
Whether or not I listen to him, it's a different thing. But he always gives, a totally different take.
Welcome back to the Take a Chance on You podcast, hosted by me, Alexandra Forsyth. Today, I am joined by James Thomlinson, who is the founder and CEO of Sprint Partners. It's a management consultancy for marketing agencies across brands. James, how are you doing?
I am doing great, thank you, Alexandra.
You're happy to be here?
I am, yes. A lovely spot.
It is. We're going to have some good conversation. So do you want to give the listeners a little bit of a introduction to who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I've had 20 years experience working in the marketing industry across kind of PR, social content, advertising, and worked in some really, really big agencies for 20 years. Have had UK managing director positions, EMEA managing director positions, and had a great opportunity to work with some global brands, like a Sky, a Virgin, British Airways, top airlines, tourism boards, governments. And up until the end of 2024, that's what I did. I then decided to launch my own company because I'd been working for someone else for 20 years. I'd reached a personal milestone in my life of turning 40. I had 2 kids.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Wanted to spend more time at home and thought, look, I've got to work for 20 more years. Let's split my career in half and focus on doing my own thing. So I didn't want to launch another agency because it's very hard out there in the marketing industry at the moment. There's so many companies. So I really, really wanted to, focus on that higher value strategic work, use my expertise to kind of give something back to people who are launching their own businesses, their own agencies. Perhaps they're, doing very well in their career in brands. And I wanted to give them that high level strategic advice to guide them and help, help them grow and win.
Yeah. What was it like launching a business for the very first time?
Yes. Yeah. I'd done it within other businesses, but you've obviously got that safety net and infrastructure in place. So it's very different.
And you're learning on the go.
You are learning on the go. You are having to do everything. You can very rarely rest, although perhaps we can come on to learning about when to listen to your body. I know we had a chat. you are very much.
I'm very much go at the minute. Yeah.
So having holidays is very hard. So you really do have to work through and make sure you plan your time wisely, weekends, so you don't burn out. But it's one of those things that you just got to throw yourself into. And when you do, when you then stop and take a view and think, okay, how is this different to the last 20 years? Would I go back? And you think, actually,
I love that question.
No, because we have clients. I have a team. I was chatting to my team yesterday about sometimes how long it takes to get things signed off when you're working for clients, and that's because there's layers of quality control. You have a wider brand and reputation to always think about. When you're the founder or you're in control of your own business, you can be so quick. You can not worry about failing. You can try things. You can pick up an AI tool, try it, see if it works. Doesn't work, you can move on to the next thing. And that speed is so energetic and refreshing, right? And sometimes I look back and think, what on earth was I doing when I was working in my role before? if I had applied this same pace and innovation and intensity to my previous role, it would have been very different. So yeah, loving it at the moment.
Good. It's really interesting because I'm the same. Sometimes I sit there and think to myself, would I go back? But it's as you say, you actually feel you were moving a lot slower when you were working for somebody else. And that's not a bad thing because companies run at their own pace. But when you're building, you can make those quick decisions. You
Yeah.
can move very fast.
Yep.
You can take calculated risks. They need to be calculated. They need to be thought out to a certain extent, have that roadmap and
Absolutely.
strategy.
Yeah.
But you can move
Yeah.
and you can do things even if you're working from home or in an office. So it gives you this new lease of life.
Totally agree. But at the time, I thought I was flat out, right?
Yeah.
I thought I couldn't go any faster when I was in those roles, and they were reasonably high level roles and managing director roles of companies with big global footprints, managing different teams and different clients. So it felt really busy at the time, but the level of intensity and also freedom is so different when you're running your own business. And it's you learn, you have to learn, you have to try things.
Yeah.
You can't neglect your own learning and development. You can't have an attitude, oh, I'm not going to worry about AI and social media because that's for Gen Z. You've got to continually learn and develop and push yourself.
I always say I think it's quite humbling. I'm a lifelong learner. So we were talking shortly before the podcast courses that we're learning about online, and AI is a prime example. Even though I know quite in depth from my background in technology how AI works and the risks, etc., I'm always open to learning more. Because it will make you better and it will make you a more enhanced individual in your role. So being open to other people as well as learning can't be understated. Because as you say, if you close yourself off, that's possibly a wasted opportunity, or it would take you longer to get to the next phase.
Yeah, absolutely. And no one person can ever be perfect or brilliant at every single thing. What's really important is to have awareness of a wide range of different topics, and also a self-awareness to know where your strengths and your weaknesses are. Things in society, and also particularly in the marketing industry, they change so quickly at a rate of knots. LinkedIn algorithm, a new AI tool that's come out. It's impossible to stay on top of that. So you have to understand who those experts are, understand where that knowledge is, and you do have to take the time out. We spoke about, this week for every hour over lunch break, I've been sitting on a LinkedIn call
Fantastic.
to understand how to make the most of the LinkedIn algorithm, my LinkedIn profile for myself and my business. I've done AI tools, YouTube videos when I'm cycling indoors, just to understand maybe how to make the most of HubSpot.
Yeah.
So you've just got to do that type of thing when you're on your own. And when you're in a bigger company, you have training and development, chief people officers, big teams who send out emails and courses, and you just don't really pay attention to it because
It doesn't feel personalized.
And you have that safety blanket around you, thinking, oh, that's someone else's responsibility.
Yeah, especially in kind of marketing sales. If we think about PowerPoint and presentations, you might have somebody doing that when you're in a large company, which I have for a long time. And then when you build something on your own, you think, oh God, I don't have that person. And now how am I meant to present this deck? Because there's always been somebody on the back foot to help me with that.
Yeah, that's a great example.
It's the small things you don't realise, just presentation and layout actually mean a lot more.
And if your
They're your
emails
brand.
don't work on Outlook or something, you have to be the IT person to fix it as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting wearing multiple hats. How do you navigate that? What would you recommend, do you think, if somebody not wakes up tomorrow, but they put a plan in place and say, right, I'm going to build my business now, I'm going to start something. Anything when you look back, not that you would have done differently, but anything you'd recommend out? Because you have a team now.
Yeah, I do.
But day one, it was
just me.
Yeah.
Would I do anything different? I thought about it for a while. I think having 20 years of experience, particularly advising clients, I knew quite a lot of what I needed to do. Have a very clear proposition, not try and offer a wide range of services, stay particularly focused. I knew that marketing, PR, brand awareness, hence coming on your amazing podcast,
Thank you.
is incredibly important, and you need to invest in that,
Yeah.
and you need to be consistent at investing in it. You can't, peak and trough, because what's really hard for all different sectors that you're working in is doing the client work, but then also building your pipeline and thinking about how you win the next set of client work. And if you are, approaching it in peaks and troughs, the marketing and sales, you're going to have, periods where your income is lower. So you need to get that balance with doing the work and being disciplined to carve out the time to do your own marketing and sales. So they would be sort of my tips. And then thinking back to your question about what I might have done differently, I did a lot of calls, a lot of meetings, a lot of running around town, town being London. And sometimes, doing 7, 8 meetings a day, right? So I'd try and maximize my time when I was in London, even though I only live, 20, 30-minute train ride away. Did I need to do all of those meetings? Probably not. But even I have the view that even if you pick up one nugget, sometimes that can change your outlook or direction on something. I was thinking this morning around kind of a proposition for a particular client. And then I was thinking, did I need to go to that event? But I actually heard something from that event that informed something. I think that's the hardest thing when you're on your own, not saying no to opportunities and feeling like you have to do something. So I think that's one of the hardest things that maybe I changed, applying that filter to who you meet, what you do, what you don't do.
Boundaries came to mind when you were talking then, learning when to say no. You can't do everything.
Yep.
Even when you've got a team, you still can't do everything because you've got to delegate. You've also got to be there for your team and have those meetings versus client meetings. But as you say with pipeline, understanding seasons, which seasons do you do well in, which seasons possibly could you dedicate more time to training is big. And then the outreach. I mean, I outreach every single day. There might be a time where I don't need to do that in the future, but I love doing that part of it. I love sending emails. I love having calls. I love speaking to people.
It's a great routine to get into.
It's a great routine to get into. I dedicate certain portions of time, so maybe 40 to 60 minutes. And then I'll go back and do the same in the afternoon, maybe a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But obviously in between that time, emails come through and then you've got to respond. You've got to go to meetings and do projects. So it's working out what's best for you and what's best for your business. If in the beginning you do need to dedicate more time to outreach, you're going to have to do that to build up the pipeline.
Yeah.
And then when you've got it, maybe you could lessen the amount of time. So it's as you said, peaks and troughs.
Yeah, applying that discipline is really important. It's very hard to do. And once you fall out of some kind of structure, it is a slippery slope and very hard to get back into that structure. So an example of how I manage this, it's not as scientific as this, but it helps me give me a guide and understanding of what I should be doing. So in my diary between 6 and 8 a.m. every morning, I have booked out for brain/body training. And that means at some point between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m., I will take time out, maybe read something, maybe listen to a podcast. I use this app called Blinkist, which gives you kind of 15-minute summaries of books. So I might, go for a walk and listen to a summary of a business book. But I'm also, into fitness, into triathlon. So I normally try and make that gym time or running, cycling, swimming time. So that kind of gives me a guide and a bit of a routine. And then between 8, kind of 9:30, I'll have blocked out for kind of like industry reading and outreach.
And the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll flick on the news, I'll go to the trade magazines, I'll see if there's anyone I need to contact. I'll go back through my CRM and think, okay, do I need to get back in touch with everyone? And that kind of sets me up for my day, and then it's done. Normally in that time, I'll try and think of something to write on LinkedIn as well, like a quick post.
I know we didn't talk about the content side.
Didn't talk about that, no.
And when you said about brand and building that up, it's blocking out time to possibly do edits of content which you want to put out. I mean, scheduling it's better than not, because at least you've got that. But yeah, it's where does that time come from? So I often find in the evenings, 1 or 2 hours before I go to bed, I sometimes will have creative ideas from listening to a podcast, reading something. Maybe I'd like to put a post out about that, an industry piece of news tomorrow.
Yep.
So sometimes it just happens, even though that's not on my schedule at all.
Yeah.
But it's come up, and now I want to talk about it.
And I think, which we can talk about, I guess, more, but AI is your best friend or your employee of the month, all the time. You flick your phone open Claude, ChatGPT, and you can just dictate, hi, just had an idea for a LinkedIn article or a blog article. Broadly, this is what's on top of my mind, blah, 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 blah. Can you transcribe this into the first draft? And, you can then return to it later down the line. It's saved in your chat history. But it's a great way of, rather than taking the time to write something down by hand or typing something out, you can just speed up that whole process. I'm a big fan of automation.
And on that point, I know that if you're on Teams and Zoom now, it will automate and give you a summary if you switch it on of the meeting. So I think using tools like that is most beneficial, because, as you say, it cuts out the time. I mean, if I think about the podcast, even just day to day, I still do write down a lot of my notes, but that's more of a comfort for me, a safety net possibly. I still like to have it visually in front of me. But yeah, maximizing time through the tools is definitely a good thing.
Absolutely. I use this little device called Claude, which is like a slightly thicker than a credit card. Don't worry, I haven't got it on now. I always ask during meetings, is it okay if I use this? And you push a button and it transcribes the whole conversation, right? So if you're meeting a prospect, you can do it, and then when you then need to send a follow-up or a proposal, you can use that as a guide to shape the first draft of that proposal. Obviously, you put in AI. My specific direction on you writing this proposal is it needs to have the 4 areas, it needs to have an exec summary, but based on the conversation that I had with the prospect, shape it like this. That saves you 2-3 hours. And you just, I think that's the type of thing that we were talking about earlier. When you're in a big organization, you would probably rely on someone else, like you said, a junior person, to do that.
Note taking.
When you're on your own, you have to think, right, how can I get my business running as efficiently as possible, as lean as possible, because you don't want to take on staff costs. Hiring people is incredibly important. When you're a small business, there's a lot of risk associated and pressure. If you've got that pressure, you're not going to be performing at your best. So I really, really set out with a blank sheet of paper, how can I scale my business by being at home as much as possible, and then using automation to effectively have a workforce of 3 or 4 people before I need to hire someone full time. And that's really what I've set out to do, and found good ways that I now advise clients on how they can do the same.
So talk to me a little bit about working from home and the dynamics of that.
Yeah, so lucky I've got a great setup with lovely wife and two boys. So it's a busy household. I've got my own office space, which I like. I hoover it, make sure it's clean. It's like my zen zone, right? Because then I feel like I can do
it's
my
productive.
best.
You've got to create a safe environment.
Yeah, and I have a couple of screens in there. Behind my screen, which no one sees, I've got like a noteboard, a cork board, and I put things on there like my 2-year-old's artwork, just to have a little look at, or photos of family, just to when I'm breaking in between tasks, just to break it up. And yeah, I have, place in the garden where I can do exercise. I've got pretty much everything I need there.
Do you ever go into a co-working space or an
No,
office? No. Okay.
I'm not a fan of co-working spaces. I have clients who,
You'll
maybe
go to their
maybe
office.
10. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Clients kindly let me use their offices, but I equally have clients and maybe 10, 20 people, and they use co-working spaces. And I totally get the benefit for it, and it is for some people. I think in the world we live in, with more AI, more tools, more AI produced content, less personality, if you're running a business, culture and nurturing that culture to build relationships and human thinking and, jokes and humor is more important than ever, right? And that's what will help your business thrive and, have that authenticity in increasingly AI and synthetic world. So I get the need to have that. But for me, I want to try and do that remotely. It's important to spend time together with my team, but I think if you're working with people who you trust, maybe they're a slightly younger generation or they're very capable in working remotely, I do think to some extent you can build, a culture and good rapport remote, providing you're optimizing the time that you spend in person. So it's a great way to keep those costs down, to run a leaner business. And then you can maybe use those profits to invest in other things. So I'll see how it goes. I'm very reluctant against using the shared working space.
Yeah.
Maybe ask me in a year. But
Never know.
that's my outlook.
Yeah. I mean, as your team expands, which naturally it will in the next few years, you might think to yourself 1 day a week or 2 days a week, even if it's not a co-working space, something where you can bring your community together, because that's what you're building inside the company, really.
Yeah.
Do you get together at all? And are you all local to the same area?
No, not local, but kind of in and around London. So it's easy. So all in the UK, yeah. So it's easy to get together.
As long as you're doing that, I think as long as you're finding ways to possibly see each other, even if it was only once a month.
Yeah, exactly. And we do that. And we also sit on Teams calls, collectively. So it's, whereas in an office, you'd go into a meeting for an hour and you'd talk through things. We do that on Teams calls. It's not the same, but also I'm not leaving, people who are early on in their career to their own devices. I think it's incredibly important when you're managing people that you have to put their workload before your own. Yeah. So you have to take the time out and you say, right, are you really clear on this? Do we need to go through it? Do I need to give you feedback? And you spend the time with them doing that before you do your own work. And that sometimes means you don't start until the afternoon. If you have the mentality of, oh, do you know what? I'll just do it myself. I won't give you feedback. I'll just override everything you do and not teach you what I've done. You're never going to grow your business. You have to put the time in to train and nurture people. It's painful sometimes, but it will reap the rewards longer term.
Always remember where you started. I think sometimes as when we're rising above the ranks as leaders, we're in the hustle and bustle, and it's no fault of our own.
Yeah.
But we also started at the bottom, or even if not at the bottom, I started an entry-level role in cybersecurity when I was starting in corporate. And then through certain promotions and navigating and moving around different companies, I naturally went through the leadership route. And now, obviously, being a host of a podcast, doing certain things in public speaking outside of here, I know that there are a lot of responsibilities on me, etc. But I never forget that. And I never forget the people that took a chance on me, taught me everything that I know. And I was lucky enough when I worked with a startup as my first job, they really took the time to teach me and they answered every question I had. they never made me feel silly about it, even if it was a really small question that possibly I could have figured out on my own. They still answered it and gave me the time and space, nurtured me, and that's carried me through. I've never forgotten. So
Well said. Well said. And I'm of the view that there are no silly questions. You have to ask them. I remember when I started out, I was so inquisitive and curious, and you just ask questions all the time because you as you develop, you learn everyone's brains are different, right? And you process or try and structure or rationalize information in totally different ways. Mine works very much in a matrix system, right? So I try and make things linear and put them in boxes and follow that process that leads to that outcome. So I always had to ask questions to try and organize, workflows
yeah,
in my mind. Yeah, totally. And there's a great phrase, which is, don't pull the ladder up. If you get promoted, don't pull the ladder up to not enable anyone else to grow beneath you. Keep it there and help people take that step on the ladder beneath you. And I think, sometimes due to British competitiveness and slightly more cynical media backdrop and nature, we like to moan a lot.
yeah,
We like to point things out about, people and shortcomings, particularly, UK government or businesses. We sometimes do that to individuals as well. But, you've got to praise people and celebrate the wins and take people on a journey and be positive and nice to them. And that will 100% come back around. People will remember how you made them feel, how you treated them. And I look back on the people who were juniors in my team, they've gone on to, be in amazing positions. So
but you helped,
never forget that that's going to be
and
happening as
you
well.
helped with that. And I always say, be prepared that the team you have will possibly move on at some point. As you say, I think there's possibly scarcity around that. Well, they're my team. I want them to obviously stay with the company, but nurture them, teach them everything. And then, yes, possibly they will go on. They might stay with you for the next 10 to 15 years. But if they don't, you've helped shape their life. And you've, like you say, it's the journey in terms of the business. Take employees with you, get them involved in decision making early. Don't wait. I think, like I say, if I look back when I started out entry level through to getting promoted into different roles, I was always a part of those big decisions. So obviously working with a startup, if you're not involved in decision making, what are you doing really? Because you're not in those meetings, so you've got to talk. So definitely take them along.
It's hard if you've got a great person in your team and they hand in their notice.
I know.
Looking back, when I was, a younger managing director and experienced, you take it personally. It's hard not to take someone resigning personally. And then you think, oh, I'm not going to talk to them around the office. And you just can't, as you say, very, very wise of you. You can't be like that. You have to congratulate them. You have to accept that that's part of life. You have to not close doors to working with them again or them to come back and working, with you again. But it's hard, and that maturity comes with life experience. Right?
So moving on to working from home. What we spoke about before the podcast is for James, obviously navigating your 40s, the next step, the next decade, but also we've said keeping on top of trends. And so we've got younger generations now. How do you do that?
I think having a 12-year-old son is a good way of, certainly keeping on top of lingo.
And networking.
And trends.
Being around people.
Networking, going to conferences is good. Hearing other people speak, especially on specialist topics, AI, culture, that's really interesting. You have to do that. You have to find a way of filtering information for you as well. Again, using automation is a great way of doing this. If you trust certain sources, you can use tools to summarize those sources, bring you back, maybe a newsletter, summarizing those sources and information. Sometimes, because of the wealth of information out there, you have like paralysis, right? You don't know what to do with it. And because you don't know what to do with it, you therefore don't bother engaging with it or trying to find it in the first place. So even if you just find one thing new a day, that's super important. You can't ever stop learning. You've got to find the time to do it. But going back to what we discussed about your brain and matrix, you've got to find little process or workflow that works for you. And you have to accept that you're never going to know everything. You're never going to be able to do everything, but doing something is better than doing nothing. And sometimes that anxiety, particularly if you're on social media and you're scrolling through LinkedIn, Instagram or TikTok, and you're seeing someone else doing this and someone else doing this, you think, crikey, I'm not doing enough. That anxiety can stop you from doing anything. So don't worry about that. Just focus on being yourself, staying in your lane, and focus on the things that are relevant to you and you're interested in, and just, learning and developing and progressing one step at a time.
Do social media, I try and use it more for networking, for connections, for business side. I don't really doom scroll that much. If I see myself on social media for any longer than an hour, that's when it starts to trickle in, even for me. And I think, ooh, I'd love to do what they're doing, or ooh, they're ahead of me.
Yeah.
And I immediately remove myself because I've gotten to the point where I can't go there.
Yeah, and that's human nature. It's human nature, but having that self-awareness to, throw your phone away when you're getting caught in a doom scroll. I only really use LinkedIn now. I couldn't do what you do and manage multiple channels.
I know.
That is, have
For the
respect
podcast,
for
they
that.
have to.
It's exhausting.
I know.
But beneficial.
Every platform's different as well. And you mentioned the algorithm earlier on. LinkedIn, I think, is going through a few changes with the algorithm. Instagram is as well. TikTok, YouTube. Yeah, they're all slightly different. All I know is what I'm seeing, short form content is really having a moment for what they're tuning into and actually engaging with.
Yeah.
So it's such a short window to kind of get your point across.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, if I'm watching a video online, if you can't grab me within the first 10 to 15 seconds, I'm likely to just switch off.
Yeah.
But then I love watching entrepreneurs on YouTube. And I love listening to their full length video, which might be over an hour, but they're talking through a lot of different strategies. So as you said earlier on with podcasts, I'll tend to be on the move.
Yes.
When I'm listening to that, I'll be going somewhere.
Yeah, I think, and that's why, podcasts have exploded, right? It's great. We have this amazing video setup as well, which is brilliant. But the flexibility with a podcast is you can listen to it on the move. And I think people, particularly with what the UK government is considering doing with under 16 social media ban, people are way more conscious about screen time, or double screen time, watching TV at the same time as you're on your phone, and maybe even you got your laptop there because you're doing a bit of work as well. You just need to get away from screens. So mediums like podcasts and audio, I think, will just continue to rise.
And going off what you said about social media, possibly a ban coming into place for under 16s here in the UK. We know that Australia has already implemented a ban. It will change the landscape, but the trends last year and this year, even before last year, community and getting people back together in person. I love being able to talk to you right now opposite each other. I don't mind virtual meetings, virtual coffee mornings, virtual podcasting. But in person, I get to see how you're interacting with me and whether or not we could linger on a point together, and it might go off in a different direction that I hadn't even thought about. That could be completely different virtually. So it's in person. It is where we're going, experiences, live events.
Yeah,
it's
and
all coming back around.
It can be overwhelming.
It can be.
For a lot of people, and
especially if you're introverted.
I'm not I go to a lot of networking events. I'm not a massive fan of networking. I'm quite chatty and outgoing, but it depends what day it is, what side of bed you got out of in the morning. But I set myself a really simple, rule or KPI when I go to networking events, which is at a minimum speak to 3 people. Yeah. And then that's job done.
I go home.
And then, yeah, maybe. But then sometimes you get in the flow, you end up speaking to more people. But, like I was saying about, information or just, learning, doing one thing at a time, if you speak to 3 people, you have 3 good conversations with people, you will learn something or you might open up a door. So just, if you are overwhelmed by that type of thing, unfortunately, networking, posting it online, growing a personal brand. If you're starting a business, you have to do these things. If you find it overwhelming, you get anxious, you don't think you're good at it, just start small and take, one step at a time, set one KPI at a time.
I think we'll linger on that point in terms of strategy. So anybody out there thinking about starting their own business, if they were to go down the personal brand, business brand, networking route, starting small. So maybe going to 1 or 2 events a month.
Yep.
Or every couple of weeks make it known that you'd like to go to 1 or 2 events.
Yep.
And as you say, setting that KPI early rather than later. Minimum 3 people or minimum 5 people,
Yep.
maximum 10.
Yep.
And then once you've done that, as you say, you get into the flow. There are some events that are just fantastic. And
and
big
the people
groups of
there
people,
make it easier.
and you're all together, and you might find that you end up speaking to 50 people. I know for anybody listening, you think, oh my God, 50 people.
Yeah.
But actually, when you're in the flow, you just never know where it's going to take you. So starting small, but being open again to others and going into it with, you don't need to go and pitch yourself. I think people sometimes with networking, I used to be the same. I would go and think, I've got to talk about the business. I've got to talk about what I'm doing. I've got to make it known that this is who I am.
Yep.
But if you go into it with an elevator pitch in a way that you just introduce yourself, your name, your business, and what you're passionate about.
Yep.
I always say those 3 points.
Yeah.
Just quick and simple.
Really good.
And then you just never know. Somebody might ask you more. Oh, that's really interesting. What are you up to right now? Any projects? Unravels?
Yeah. No one likes networking really.
Not at the beginning.
Your 10 KPI is quite high.
I'm a bit addicted now.
But it is.
But no, not at the
you
beginning.
grow into, and most people don't like it. So you're in that space where everyone knows the position, and it's fine. It tends to be a friendly space. Just jumping back to the advice on founders, right? LinkedIn published its top job titles. I think a couple of days ago, fastest growing job titles in the UK, and on 9th position was the job title founder. So yeah, this type of discussion and advice is going to be even more relevant with more people. The barriers to starting up are even lower. Highly democratized, access to AI tools, highly democratized. Before, it would perhaps only be big companies with multi-million-pound budgets who could get access to this advanced technology. But through that democratization, you can start your own business. You can build your own website. I built my own website. GoDaddy's using GoDaddy's AI tool. Could it be better? Yes. You can build
feedback will be going to GoDaddy.
You can build apps on Lovable and made, so you can become an app or workflow developer. Is that phrase which I hate, vibe coding. So you have this ability through these technologies to be a founder.
And to trial. I think that's the biggest thing. And also, we don't talk about that enough. So whenever you're using a new tool, don't be afraid to trial it for a couple of weeks. There's often trials with these different tools and see if you like it before you invest. It's proof of concept. It's just the way I've always done that. So yeah, don't be afraid to do it. If you want to be a founder, if you've got a good idea and you want to execute it, there's tools out there to help you. Budget and investment, we haven't talked about that too much, but that can be for some a barrier to entry. But as you say, I mean, I set my website up myself, exactly the same as you in terms of putting my portfolio out there and collating the information so people know who I am.
It's not always about what you do. It's about how you do it, how you present it. So really focusing on staying in your own lane, having a clear proposition, a clear story, having a really nice, wrapper or packaging around it is super important. And then how confidently and, polished you promote it is really important. So don't worry about getting distracted and being too many different things and thinking my competitor's doing this. Focus on being the best you can be at that particular.
But always being open to other new ideas, inspiration as well. But you'll always have your own spin on it. You'll always have your own take on this idea, whether or not there's 10 other people doing it.
Yeah.
You are you.
Yeah.
So that can't be
Bring that
replicated in some ways.
authenticity and it'll help
So
you stand
bringing
out.
that to the surface,
Yeah.
as you say, authenticity, trust, respect, building that relationship and rapport with your audience. And that's another thing, choosing the right audience for you, but not being too disheartened. And I always love the phrase, you will find your tribe. You will find your community. It might not be in the city that you're currently in. It might be that you need to relocate to go and find that tribe, but you will find them and they will find you.
Yeah.
But that always comes back to building that brand from the get-go, putting your ideas out there, even if you don't feel ready.
Yeah.
And again, if you don't feel ready, might feel a bit uncomfortable, but do it.
Yeah, and that is another factor. We spoke about networking and it being overwhelming, and some people, have that when it comes to putting their own brand and their own, personality and that vulnerability out there. It's hard, and it's one of those things that, again, once you do, you can grow into the role. And I guess I'm fortunate. I have procrastinated over the years in the roles that I was in. I didn't really use social media that much. I kind of had the attitude, I'll just get on with the work. I'll do good work. I'll build my reputation through that way. I certainly wasn't, on LinkedIn, just thinking my own personal brand. In hindsight, I wish I had have done that, because I would have been in a way stronger position now. I understand not wanting to do that and getting hung up. Okay, what do I say? How do I say it? But just take the leap of faith. And
I love that. Somebody said that to me this week. I was going back and forth on email and we were just talking casually about what we're up to this year. And they said, take the leap. So going back to one point I wanted to talk about, navigating your 40s and thinking about younger generations now, Gen Z, Gen Alpha. I've spoken to a few people about this in terms of possibly communication disparities between younger generations versus older generations. Do you see that at all?
in how they communicate,
And how you connect with each other. I mean, there's always the argument that Gen Z and Gen Alpha are very bold, they're very brave, they stand up for themselves, speak up for themselves, and maybe that can change dynamics. I mean, for me, I'm very late Gen Z. I think I'm actually a zillennial, which is 1 year into millennial.
Right.
I can't keep up with all of the age brackets, but I am very open to people, very open to new ideas. But sometimes like I said, we've got another generation coming in, Gen Alpha, who will be with us soon in the workforce. So that will change things again. You don't feel left behind, is what I'm trying to say.
Every day. I feel old every day.
No.
I think, what do I think about?
But 40s is a great decade, right?
Well, I'm just into it. So ask me maybe in 8 years, 9 years.
Come back on in 5 years.
But the generational thing is a challenge in the corporate world. For many reasons, right? And I'll try and reel off a few, but attitude to feedback. Yeah. And I will use some generalizations to exaggerate the point here. But perhaps older generations, you can maybe be a little bit more direct, unfiltered with feedback, in my experience. Generalizing the younger generation, you have to tone down that feedback. You have to take more time to give it, to listen to them, to think about how they're feeling following that. So when you're a manager, that creates a different style that you need to be able to adapt, and it creates more time. You have to spend more time with people. So that's one area, I think. Another area which I'm having an Alexandra moment, it's just popped out of my head there for what happened, what you did earlier. I've totally gone.
This is what happens. Too many good ideas.
Yeah, when your brain's not thinking fast enough, sometimes it just can't catch itself up.
What I really love with what you just said, adaptability, having a unique style for every employee.
Yeah.
I think it's renowned. It reminds me of, I was watching the football last year And when I was listening to coaches talk about their teams, they would mention how they would have a different, unique way of talking to the players. Can't talk to every player the same way. And I think it applies to corporate. It applies to having a team in whatever role you're in or industry, etc. You need to talk to everybody and approach them as who they are and their ways of working. What I'm hearing is emotional intelligence is huge.
Absolutely.
That's the key buzzword, really. Emotion intelligence, empathy, and leading with that compassion. It's not talked about enough. I feel it's quite understated. As you say, I think it's good to be direct. I like direct feedback. However, as you said, taking a bit more time, asking follow-up questions, having follow-up meetings, and just saying, do you need me to run it through again? Is there anything I could do differently next time? And what do you want? And I think that's a cool question. What do you want me to do for you?
I totally agree. And you made me remember my other point that I was going to make. As a parent, managing the work-life balance of different people and needs is also really hard. So parents have to leave an office to go and pick their kids up. They cannot do anything about that. You physically have to pick your little, guy or girl up from a school when it finishes at 3:00, 3:30. Sometimes where you then expect people to be present in offices and work until 5, 6, maybe put an extra hour in. That's hard to say, bye to a director in the business when they're leaving at 3:00 to go and get their child. And then the younger generation think, why am I here? And that's really hard to explain to people. So yeah, it is incredibly challenging how more generations and very different generations are entering in the workplace and how you manage and navigate that.
Well, because it goes back to technology. With Gen Alpha, that's all they've grown up with from a very, very young age. AI is being taught in schools. It will become part of the curriculum, I'm hearing, as early as this year, potentially. So it will become a staple part of learning alongside all of the other subjects that they're taught. So they're growing up in a complete different world to me and yourself. So it's navigating that.
I had a client who told me a story, so to cut you off. They were interviewing someone for a role. Let's say the salary was 40,000, that number. They were really keen on the role, and then said, well, so it's 3 days a week in the office. I said, well, if it's 3 days a week in the office, it's 50,000. And they put 10,000 increase on their salary. They were Gen Z, and there is that different way of thinking and valuing the flexibility and the work-life balance. I think an older generation would just assume they had to come into the office, get the train, they had to pay for commuting out of their own pocket. In some ways, that is a refreshing outlook, but also it is a barrier and frustration. If you're a leader of a business, rightly so, there is this level of expectation and sometimes entitlement to value those things and put your life before work. But it does create friction, and it does, potentially enable career development and growth by maybe holding, those certain type of views when the world and the industries perhaps haven't, got there yet. So there perhaps needs to be that a little bit more flexibility amongst the younger generation to get on the career ladder to develop.
Oh, because if we look at the economy and employment rates, definitely more opportunity for the younger generation is needed. Do you get any inspiration from your children in terms of the business?
Yeah, I do.
They're learning.
I also asked my 12-year-old son advice. I'm thinking about hiring someone at the moment, and I'll explain the situation to him. Slightly more senior person, enable me to grow more. Shorter term, it might mean I have to work a little bit harder, maybe earn less money from the business. What do you think? So I like to get that. I like to.
What does he say?
Whether or not I listen to him, it's a different thing. But he always gives a totally different take, right?
Wow.
So I think that's important, and
By different take, what's the
just
outcome?
maybe ask questions in a different way that you haven't thought about
So
it,
interesting.
or because they haven't got any of that baggage, they might see things a bit more simply, and you're like, actually, yeah, that's a totally different way of thinking about it. It's made me alter my opinion by 1 or 2 or 10%, which is important.
I think that's fantastic. And I think it's great that you give your children that opportunity to do that
Yeah,
and to ask them, well, to just fill them in on what you're doing and then be open to what they're saying.
yeah, yeah. I guess so. Yeah.
You're teaching them entrepreneurship, leadership from a very young age.
Yeah, yeah. I like
Which,
Hugo, my 12-year-old, does his homework next to me while I'm working, and he sees me on the computer screen and jumps in and asks questions, and so yeah, I guess I don't really think about it.
Mm.
I'm not doing it intensely. I'm just
Yeah,
doing it to spend.
but that's the best way because, like you say, going back to baggage, there's no. I mean, you're obviously responsible, but you're just doing it in passing in a way, which
Yeah,
it's better.
yeah. Learning from
Yeah, open
osmosis,
to
right?
interpretation. To kind of wrap up
Yes.
for the episode, it's been fantastic to have you here. Any last strategies you want to give to listeners? Because we spoke about if you're starting a business, networking, feedback, time management, anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, I think if I'm speaking to people who are considering doing their own thing, I think if you're younger and you've got less responsibilities, i.e. a mortgage and kids, just go for it. Don't think about it twice, just jump in and do it. Take a little bit of time, maybe go on a holiday, take some time out from what you're doing day to day to think about it properly. You plan it, but then just jump in. Don't look back, keep going forward, learn as you go, and then take stock. Each month, is it working? Am I doing the right thing? Having that self-awareness, so to do that. If you are considering leaving your full-time job, maybe my advice would be slightly different. I think have a plan, take your time to develop it, go and speak to people, whether or not you think that's going to work, and do it in a much more considered way. But if you are going to do it, you have to do it. You can't live in this halfway house of, I'm going to do it, but I'm also going to be conscious it might not work, and therefore I might go back into a full-time
Dip your
role.
toe in, yeah.
You have to be all in, otherwise it probably won't work.
It's a really interesting point to leave this podcast on. You have to go all in, taking stock, auditing what's going well. I mean, I write down my to-do list, tick everything off. I have self-awareness every week where I write down how the week's gone. Did I spend too much time on this task versus this one? What will I do next week? So I really love that. And just going for it.
Yep.
Just going for it, not looking back. It will work out. It might. I always say, if it doesn't work out the way you want, what if it leads on to something better than you could have ever imagined?
Yeah, great way.
So being open, optimistic, hopeful, and you will get there. And then let us know if you do start your own business.
Yeah.
Come back and let us know. But it's been a fantastic episode of Take a Chance on You. I'm with James from Sprint Partners, and I will speak to you all very, very soon. Bye.